Good morning all. So we're moving ahead to Surah 113, Surah al-Falaq, right? 3 points I want to make before we read or recite, right? The verses in the Surah, right? I want to talk about the concept about faithfulness because, well, this was the lesson that I was sent here to learn and to teach, well, amongst other things. So, yeah, one of the lessons I was sent here to learn, and amongst one of the things I was sent here to teach after having learned, right? So, one, right? So many people, and it is a thinking in Western Caribbean civilization, Caribbean thinking, right? That this concept about faithfulness or being faithful to one person is a Western concept, right? This concept about being faithful to one person is not a Western or a Christian concept, right? Me being faithful to you in a relationship, that didn't derive from Western philosophy or Christian philosophy, right? There are many ancient cultures in the world, right, in which this concept about faithfulness, right, and it doesn't have to do with any deity or anything, right? It has to do with the concept or the message, right? There are ancient cultures other than Christianity or Western concept. It is in different cultures throughout the world in history, right? The concept about one person being faithful to another person, right? So I'm just here to just denounce that thinking that, oh, if you, because in the Caribbean we have a culture, honing, right, or being unfaithful. There's a culture, a general culture of that in the country, in the Caribbean, and by extension all over the world, but also in Trinidad and Tobago, right, is a common thing that occurs, as well as things like common law and stepdad and incest relations and all these kind of various things that derive from history and all kind of thing, right? So it is a thinking, and I just want to change this concept of seeing this, right? For Caribbean people, right? Indo-Africans, right? Within the Caribbean, right? This concept of being faithful to a person, right? That is not a Western concept, right? It is also an Eastern concept. It is also, it is a practice generally in the world, right? Faithfulness to one person is not a foreign concept, right? This is a message for myself as well, right? Because we are all learning together, right? Right? Past Cheaters Club, right? We are all learning together, right? The concept about being faithful to one person, right, is not a foreign concept or should not be a foreign concept, right? And is neither a Western nor a Christian concept, right? Good. That's point number one, right? Point number two, right? To never submit to slavery, right? Never submit to slavery, right? If you're in a position where somebody is forcing you to do something, slavery is what? By definition, you are being forced to do something that you do not want to do, right? You are being forced, where it could be any form of conversion, right? It could be any form of somebody telling you that they want to have sex a particular way, right? It could be anything. It could be somebody telling you to do it. Free yourself in terms of you want to learn to drive, but somebody's telling you do not do it. You want to go and get a job, right? Somebody's telling you no, you can't do that, that's against your religion. These kind of simple normal things now, right? Never submit to slavery, right? Meaning that somebody is telling you, hey, you cannot do something that is rational, reasonable, practical, right? So there's also a boundary when it comes to what you want to do, because what you want to do is now without consequence as well, right? So that's two. Third point I wanted to make is a focus on taking any message, right? Focus on taking any message, and the fact that one shouldn't have to worry about whether or not a second Christ is coming on earth, right? That shouldn't have to be a concern about to you, right? The fact that many and most never truly took in the message, right, means that many and most will never know who the true Christ is, right? So it shouldn't be a concern to you, right? Christian, Muslim, Hindu, nobody, right? That, oh, when is this thing going to happen? Or Jesus is going to descend from, when this figure is going to descend from earth or be born through immaculate conception again, right? It shouldn't even be a concern, right, to anybody, right? Because most never even bother with the message. So why even bother talking about why the second Christ coming on earth and all this kind of thing, right? So there's 3 points I wanted to make, right? So seek refuge in Allah, right? This is the Lord of daybreak, and might I add the Lord of dusk as well, right? So and night, right? The Lord of daybreak, dusk, and night, right? Seek refuge from the evil which has been created in the world, and from the evil of darkness generally, right? And from the evil of the book says blowers and nuts. This refers to those who practice magic, right? So we have things like dark magic, the dark arts, right? I don't know if people still practice voodoo, obia, all these things, with the intention of causing harm to others. That tarot, also these tarot card readings and whatever it is that's being dug up, right, without appropriate knowledge on it, right, or for the purpose of creating any sort of chaos in anybody's lives or in the collective world, right, in the world in which we reside. So it has to do also with the intent behind why you do what you do, right? Why do you do what you do, right? Is it to cause chaos? Is it to look into people's life without their consent, right? And those things are not permitted, right? Those things are really not permitted. You shouldn't be using any sort of what is referred to as remote viewing, right, or magic, right, to view the lives, right, of anybody else, right, without their consent. And as we're talking about remote viewing, and I mentioned this in a previous video, it also refers to those on the higher echelons, so-called higher echelons of society, who have access to technologies that allow them to view into people's homes and these kind of things, right? And they would say they do that in the name of God or not, right? This is an extreme form of evil, right? And we are doing away or trying to bring this to the attention of the world, right? So that you do not utilize technologies, right, to view directly into the home of anyone else, because this is something that violates one of the deepest violations of someone's privacy you could ever think about, right? Um, so right, so also seek refuge from the evil of the envier when he envies, right? So there are many reasons why people could envy you, right? And it could be simple. You don't even have to have anything, but you could simply just have the drive or the will, right? You have a will to start a business, right? You have a will to push for, you have a will to exercise, you have a will and you don't stop, right? You have a will to complete teaching the book, you have a will to finish reading something, you have a will to finish writing something, right? You don't even have to have anything for anybody to envy you, right? So this is just unfortunate, and I don't like talking about this topic because it's something that I try to stay away from all my life, because I don't envy anybody, right? And I don't envy anybody, and I never expect anybody to envy me, right? Because I don't really have anything to envy, right? But it could be simple things that people envy about you, right? Whether it's your diet, whether it's your will, your drive, right? You're pressing forward regardless of the circumstance, right? So anything somebody could actually envy about you. So we are trying to help change people's mindset and thinking about how they view others, right? How they view others, right? So next, one more thing, because I said I was going to talk about this until 114, right? The concept, the practice about what you need to do in terms of recompensing the Caribbean, right? For if that wasn't done already, right? Because nobody communicated anything with me regarding this, but it was one of the things that I was downloaded into my consciousness that I needed to speak about, right? Materially or financially given back to the Caribbean, right? And it shouldn't have to have no hurricane in any country for any other country to give, right? So the nations in the world, or the richest, wealthiest families in the world, whoever is responsible for holding the wealth, right, of the world, right, it is a message to you all to assist people who need to be assisted, right, and the capacities that they do, and to network with us, right, to ensure that this thing unfolds in the way that it should, right? So we are moving on to the final Surah 114, right, in the morning, well, subsequent to which this daily teaching would be completed, right? So take care, everybody. Bye.